Okay, so thank you for agreeing to talk to me, Marco. Marco works for Myco Stories, and perhaps you can explain to us what it is they do and what you do there for them.
Sure, Alex. Thanks for having me. So Myco Stories is what I like to call a decentralized fungi innovation network. Decentralized because I want it to be kind of owned and contributed to by the most number of folks around the world. And the goal is really to try and foster connections, collaboration, dissemination, to really get more people to invest time, resource, and money into this incredible field of research and innovation, which is fungi. Um,
Okay.
I
Sorry.
yeah.
Yes, continue. If I don't want to
No,
interrupt.
no, I just wanted to tell you a bit more about how I came to launch this project. As you know, I don't have a scientific or biology related background, but I was working on a variety of circular economy projects that were focusing on either reducing electronic waste or single-use packaging. And actually, my personal interest in mushrooms, even though I didn't actually like them as a kid, but um, I lived in China for a long time, and I kind of discovered the huge variety through Chinese restaurant menus, or the importance that they have in traditional Chinese medicine as well. And so, working the circular economy, you can't really talk about ecology and circularity without mentioning fungi. And so that got me to do a bit of desktop research, reading a variety of books on the topic, and I discovered book by book the amazing properties of the different types of fungi that they are. Um, and more importantly, also the incredible role that they had to play in the evolution of our planet's ecosystem, and potentially the way they have also to elevate individual and collective consciousness.
Yes, I mean there's certainly a lot about fungi that people are not aware of, and their importance in the ecosystem. Essentially, how they help. Um, they say that fungi is the kind of largest, kind of organic,
Living organism. Yeah.
yeah, the largest living organism on the planet, because of its reach underground, and that and that if and that essentially fungi kind of talks to each other, and they talk to the trees, and they communicate, and they act as like a kind of bridge almost between all the different kind of types of nature, underground. There's all this communication going on. That's what I've read myself, because I am quite interested in fungi also. I've actually kind of grown some of my own in the past, which is why I was quite interested to talk to you. So,
Great.
Marco, could you kind of sort of fill us in a little bit on what some of the roles are of fungi, especially in addressing environmental challenges?
Yeah. So, I mean, they have played such an important role in the creation of our environment and our ecosystems, that they're really at the root of many of the problems or solutions that are linked to our environmental challenges. Um, I, I generally like to divide them in kind of four impact areas. So you have solutions linked to ecosystems, so agriculture, forestry. You have everything linked to food. You have obviously health, fungi playing a huge role in the development of new of new medicines. And then a more nascent one is biomaterials. If we look at what I think is one of the huge potential of progress linked to exploration of fungal solutions is really soil ecology. You might know through your personal research that they play a crucial role in maintaining soil fertility, but more importantly, the structure of the soil, which helps to keep the moisture in the ground and enables healthy plant growth through this communication and this symbiosis that some type of fungi called mycorrhizal fungi have with plants. So about 90% of plants, it's estimated, have this symbiotic relationship that enables an exchange of resources effectively between the plant and the fungal network. And so I think that this should really inspire us to rethink modern agriculture because modern agriculture uses a lot of tilling. And as we till our fields, we're effectively destroying the fungal web that lives beneath the soil. And by doing this, what we're doing also is we're effectively destroying one of the main living organisms that helps to store carbon in the soil. Mushrooms are made of a particular molecule called glomalin, and glomalin survives really well under the soil and has incredible carbon sequestration capabilities. And there's companies in the US or Australia, you have Funga in the US, Lombio in Australia, that have developed their whole business models around kind of rethinking forestry or agriculture projects by really leveraging more mycorrhizal fungi in the soil. And then you have whole lots of other solutions out there around natural pest control or kind of fungal-based plant probiotics, the same way we take probiotics for our own microbiome. You can very much do the same thing in fields and farms. You have a fantastic French company called Gaia Go who is doing this. So that's just a few examples on, I would say, environments in which man is effectively working with nature to extract something from it.
But and then I've heard that they use it also in packaging as as an alternative for plastics and that sort of thing. Is that right?
Yeah, of course. So on the materials aspect, generally we'll use mycelium, which is the root-like structure of fungi that is effectively grown to create a biodegradable material, a perfect alternative to plastic in some cases, but is also used in the textile industry, so as a replacement for leather or cotton, actually, and also in the construction industry, where you have companies like Micor in Portugal that is developing insulation panels or particle boards from it. With biodegradable packaging, you have Ecovative, which is probably the leader in the space, which is has been developing alternatives to polystyrene, for example, for over 10 years now. And then I mentioned leather.
And there's also I've read there's also kind of uses of it in cleaning up kind of toxic spills or oil spills and things like that.
That's what we call mycoremediation or bioremediation, which is effectively leveraging the incredible power of some fungi to break down the toxic molecules which are in the soil. So petrochemical base, for example, because mycelium is made out of a network of hyphae, and these hyphae have the incredible ability to exert enzymes that will break down these pollutants, contaminants, and that might be in contaminated soil or water. And then on that basis, have the capacity to effectively remediate a soil into one which is usable again. And you have companies that are doing this in France. EFEN is one of them. You also have a company in Canada that is called Microcycle that is effectively aiming to create packaging out of mycelium grown on polluted soil. So addressing two problems in one go in that way.
Right. Okay. So what are some of the unique properties or capabilities of fungi that make them so valuable?
Yeah, so what was interesting is that as I was digging my own hole into the incredible world of fungi, and the more you dig, the more you want to dig, because there's it feels like it's the most well kept secret on the planet, because they can do so much despite their relatively simple cellular structure. What I mean by that is that a mushroom can effectively, or you can replicate a mushroom almost identically from a tiny fragment of that mushroom. So because they're quite simple from a cellular perspective, well, that brings huge potential to reproduce whatever mushroom you need for whatever solution you're trying to build. And so despite this simplicity, they're incredibly intelligent and complex by nature. And when you look at the type of things that they can do, we've mentioned a few examples on concrete applications. But, for example, we might all know, but without mushrooms, without yeasts are a type of fungi, we wouldn't be able to have the fermentation process required to produce certain types of foods and such as bread, beer, wine. Likewise, they have incredible pharmaceutical capabilities.
So the pharmaceutical capabilities, you mentioned it earlier about sort of medicines and things like this. Is this only connected to what they call magic mushrooms, or is it wider than that?
Much wider. So I think the basics, and we can go back to the first half of the 20th century, is that many fungi produce compounds with medicinal properties, including antibiotics. For example, penicillin, the drug, comes from a mushroom. And then you have all sorts of other pharmaceutical properties, such as immunosuppressants, anti-cancer drugs, and they have already significantly impacted modern medicine, as we know. And because we now have the capability to DNA sequence much more of these mushrooms. Just to give you an estimation, there's about 5 million mushrooms estimated out there. There's about 100,000 that we know, and there's about 1,000 that we have DNA sequence. So there's just so much more that we will learn from it. And so beyond psychedelics, and I'll get to it, you have the whole pharmaceutical that I mentioned. Then you have something that we refer in the mushroom lingo to as functional mushrooms. So these are mushrooms that have health properties on top of the proteins that they bring. So you'll have, for example, probiotics, which will support your gut health. the most common known are the turkey tail, Trametes versicolor, or the reishi mushroom, Ganoderma lucidum, that are shown to exert probiotic effects by helping your microbiome and helping its balance. And then you have others that are getting really popular in the whole neuroprotective type of health supplements. So helping and supporting your brain health. So lion's mane, for example, is known to possess incredible capacity for neurogenesis, which is effectively the creation of new neurons in your brains and more connections and pathways between these. So this can directly impact, for example, neurodegenerative diseases such as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and there's so much more research that needs to go into this field in order to drive that health fungal solution space forward. And then obviously you've got the psychedelics. There was huge stigma in the 20th century around these, but psilocybin mushrooms have been used for over hundreds of thousands of years, because we know that as Homo erectus and early Homo sapiens used to consume magic mushrooms, and there's traces throughout history that date are quite close relationship between humans and magic mushrooms, and they were kind of frowned upon for kind of religious and then political reasons, but now they're really starting to sprout out.
Quite literally, yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And you have like the Johns Hopkins University that has done extremely well documented research on their potential to cure depression, anxiety, PTSD, and so forth. So definitely watch that space.
It's I know that reindeers also like their magic mushrooms, don't they? Apparently, yes. It's unusual, isn't it? If they're so useful in so many ways, why they are still the world's best kept secret, and so what is it about them that means that we don't know about them? Why don't we know more about them? Do you know?
Yeah, so I think first of all, they are most mushrooms are actually micro in their size. People tend to focus on what they can see, and the mushroom itself is only the fruiting body of the fungi, and most mushrooms don't even have a fruiting body. You have mushroom in your gut, you have fungi in your gut, there's fungi floating in the air, spores, and so I think there's this obviously you tend to focus on what you can see more. Then I mentioned the kind of social stigma around this, but this only in the Western world. They've always been a huge part of culture in Asian populations, and especially in China and Japan and Taiwan, and so I do believe that the recent progress into science, what we've seen over the past 50 years, for example, are really enabling us to uncover the wonderful potential and the incredible diversity of mushroom strains out there, and what each of them can do in the fields that I mentioned earlier.
So, I mean, is it? I suppose there's a couple of obvious things that spring to mind. That that the name itself, kind of fungus, puts people off it, because it's it has kind of connotations of of things going moldy and bad.
Mm.
Also, and also there's the fear. People don't really trust it because they don't know what's going to kill them and what's going to what's going to make them better. So is it because of these things, or are there other reasons why it's been why their potential has been largely untapped?
You could look at what is required basically to scale up different types of mushroom projects, or to bring these to market.
Right.
Um,
Okay.
you, I
And
guess
has
you
there
have
been a
like,
lot of investment? Has there been lots of new investment in the industry? I suppose that's what you can tell us, right? I mean, is this all changing now? Is there lots of money coming into the industry?
yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially in the last decade, we've seen, um, I think in 2015, you probably had about 30 companies globally working with, what we would call fungal innovation startups. We're probably around, 200. I've recently published a map on MycoStories with 200 players working with fungal solutions. I'm sure there's many more out there, and these are sprouting all over the world. And in terms of numbers, I think the latest number I have in mind was in 2022, it was over 1.5 billion US being invested by VCs and other investors. And then this number is expected to double by 2030. And when you start actually digging in the main areas that are attracting the most investment, which I would say is, leading is definitely food. You have companies like Nature's Find. I think they've raised up to date close to half a billion US dollars. They're valued close to 2 billion already.
Who's that? Sorry, what's their name?
That's Nature's Find with
Nature's
a Y.
Find.
Yeah,
And so
Nature's
what do
Find.
they produce? What's their product?
Yeah, so they found a unique mushroom in Yellowstone in the national park, and they effectively derived a whole alternative protein product range from that mushroom. So it's effectively an alternative to your meat type protein. So to develop, alternate, bacons, meat patties, etc. And then you have beyond food and textiles. Textile, I would say, is the second most invested fungal solutions market. With you have companies like Bolt Threads, also I think raised close to $500 million, or MicroWorks, a Silicon Valley company that raised close to 200 million. And these are companies already valued, around $500 million to $1 billion. So, none of these have gone IPO yet, but there's really promising amounts of investment, and there's definitely buzz in the investment space around both of these. And then you have the kind of material space, so like packaging or kind of constructions, where the numbers are less in terms of investment, but they still see a number of new players. So in the packaging space, as I mentioned, Ecovative, I think they probably raised around 80 million by now. Then you've got a smaller player in Italy, Mogu, who raised around 3 to 4 million, I believe. And then I mentioned Microcycle, who actually just closed last week a 2.2 million round. And they focus on the bioremediation piece. And that's something where I believe there's, there needs to be a much greater amount of money invested, because, the potential there is huge, but we just need yeah, more people to work together to develop this space.
That's mycomediation, did you say?
So Microcycle is the company,
Mm.
and yeah, and they focus on basically removing pollutants from the soil,
Oh, I see.
and they, for example, they have a capacity to transform plastic waste into mycelium, which can then be used for other purposes.
Right. And so do you work with these companies? What's your role particularly here?
Yeah. So the goal with micro stories is first and foremost to be the mycelium within the fungal solution
Yeah.
industry. So making sure, because actually all of this information is incredibly scattered, and because it's a nascent space, there needs to be the space will only benefit from shared knowledge, from shared talent, for making sure that smaller companies that are doing great work have the visibility they deserve, are able to be connected to different investment sources, are able to find the talent that they seek. And this is what MicroStories effectively helps to do. So one, obviously, to act as an awareness building platform, showcasing all of these great entrepreneurs and companies, but also enable them to get connected to what their business needs might be.
And how do you do that? How do you link them all together? What is your technique? Is it just through communication, just by kind of bringing them on board into your
Yes,
world?
so MicroStories is a relatively recent project.
Mm.
It's about six months old, and so at the moment, it's going mostly through me. But there is incredible appetite and great feedback from all of the people I've been speaking with up to date, to help grow this platform in something that could be much more automatized, and that would enable people to effectively connect directly via the platform, and being able to have access to industry information, or particular kind of information about different players, enabling better due diligence and so forth.
Yes. And this is what I love about the whole kind of novel foods and new industries around kind of around sort of fungi, is that everybody's working together, right? Everybody's sort of sharing information and making it all public, because it's a sort of common goal, that's everybody wants to find sort of methods of improving things, improving the food chain, and improving the environment, and that sort of thing. So it's and so in a way, I'm trying to do the same thing as you. I'm trying to kind of communicate and bring people together. And do you think
Yeah,
it's
and
working quite well?
I mean, I think it's so important because when you're working with a solution which is in many cases unproven. If you look at new fungi-based alternative protein products, might or if you look at some of the functional mushroom products, health supplements that I've mentioned, they face a lot of regulatory and safety concerns. If you try and bring these products to the market, you're going to have to deal with certification, testing. You're going to have hurdles around compliance based on the markets that you wish to release them. And if you're a young company, these are all like huge hurdles that generally require a fair amount of budget to overcome. And then you also have problems around patents. So you had both in the food or in the materials industry, you have some of the early players that have put patents in place that unfortunately are preventing new players from being able to fully explore this, the potential of working with fungi to develop new solutions. And so, likewise, open access to information, and you've mentioned it, I think is what has built the space so far. We have a common terminology to talk about the mushroom fanatics out there. Is we're all citizen scientists, and it's by sharing the results of personal research, of kind of home lab experiments, that the field has grown to what it is today, obviously on top of massive amounts of pharmaceutical investment over the last 50 years. But yeah, so you have these macro factors, and I'm not even talking about the macroeconomic, the other factors, looking at the current situation from an economic standpoint.
Yes, and I'm quite surprised at the numbers you were mentioning, like $500 million, and I suppose a lot of that was before things started going bad in the economy, perhaps.
Yeah. So then,
like now, it's harder to raise that kind of money.
Yeah, when I mentioned Nature's Fine, for example, or Bolt Threads, we're talking about companies that have been around for a number of years, raising Series C, Series E. Ecovative, likewise, they've been doing this for over 10 years, where the investment landscape was definitely kinder and had a greater appetite for risk. The issue that I think a lot of startups within the fungal solution industry are facing now is that in order to scale production, you have a number of variables that are capital intensive. Your space requirements for large scale fungal cultivation is going to require a factory. You're going to require bioreactors if you're working with alternative protein cultivation, this is obviously potentially higher risk than investing in a software company,
of course,
where the model has been proven 1,000 times.
I mean, new industries need a lot of money up front, don't they? Unfortunately, we are starting to run out of time, so I just wanted to ask you one last question. What is the most exciting or groundbreaking advancement in the field of fungi? What is the thing that is going to surprise people?
Yeah, thanks. Look, these are not necessarily super mediatized, but I think generative design, so basically using biomimicry to inspire ourselves of the way fungi develops itself in order to create new types of structures that are effectively as optimized structurally, but using an optimized amount of material. And fungi is extremely capable of organizing itself like that. So, looking to nature and looking to fungi as we design physical environments or objects. And then the last one I'll leave you.
So are you saying that we could perhaps sort of grow our homes in future?
Yeah, so you'll have a couple of structural issues, but there are projects, for example, in Namibia, where they are growing bricks out of mycelium and then building houses with these. So you could effectively, but yeah, more looking at. I'll give you an example. The Eiffel Tower was structurally inspired by a bone that you have in your back, the col du fémur in French. I can't remember how you say it in English. And so it basically
It's not your spine, you mean?
Yeah, so it effectively mimicked the structure of your bone in order to develop this grand structure that was built, in 1900, and so, or another example is the use of a particular type of slime mold by a Japanese researcher who effectively put a fragment of slime mold in the center of Tokyo and then put different pieces of oats in the periphery of Tokyo that represented the population density of these parts of Tokyo. And then the slime mold within 28 hours effectively developed itself to go and colonize the entire space where these pieces of oats were, and then were able to optimize the pathways between each piece of oat. And what the researchers found is that this was exactly the map of the Tokyo metro. So what urban designers probably brainstormed on and spent a number of years to develop, a slime mold did in 28 hours.
Wow.
So
this now,
yeah, please.
now we're going to run out of time. So any second, and it's